over the past year, I've been putting more of a premium on like alone time, quiet time, things of that nature. Getting to know myself a little bit more and a little bit more intimately, um, and falling in love with the man that God created me to be, and being okay with where I fall short, and being okay with where I'm really strong at too, in my whole being. I think lament leads to like self-rediscovery, self-discovery of what you've been through and where you're going, and what have you gone through and where does it take you. In practice, I see a lot of different ways lament is done, but it's a new concept for me to practice myself. If I be completely honest with you, I'm tired. I'm tired. Just got a lot that I'm carrying, and I'm known to be usually the guy that lights a room up. I'm full of joy, full of excitement, full of life, and I feel that being waned on some just from the season of life of just constant and incessant trials. And so, to be honest, I'm tired. Yeah.
Benny Roberts.
Hey,
Good to see you.
good to see you, Raygen.
Yeah, just take us to where we are and how you got here.
Okay, yeah. My name is Benny Roberts, and I'm son of Stanley and Felicia Roberts. I'm a Rondo baby, and my mom from the Rondo neighborhood married a South Minneapolis man. My family all over the Twin Cities, which I know and love really well. I currently, for work and all of those things, on top of leading my own family, my wife Geraldine, my daughter Jayla, who's 6. I work at Urban Ventures. Been here 5 years. I am now in a new role, Vice President of Youth and Career Development, meaning I lead all of our strategy for programs, all of our programs that touch youth, young adults, folks who are aspiring to figure out their direction after high school. I get to support the folks in the field who are doing the work with them. I get to lead them in their development as well. So really grateful for where I'm placed and how I get to impact more people because of it. So yeah.
So describe currently the season of life that you're in, a bit personally and professionally.
Yeah, yeah. This is probably the hardest season I've ever been in my life. There's just so many different compounding complex layers that impact my whole being. I'm a person that does not shy away from bringing my full self to work, and what I deal with at work home. I feel like being centered in who I am allows me to be my most true self everywhere I'm at. And so um, it's been a rough season for many different reasons. The obvious things, being we're still in a pandemic. There's still a lot of uncertainty about a lot of things. A lot of people's lives have been dramatically impacted by it. Some people have lost their homes. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people have relocated. Some people are ill. Some have died. And so juggling all of that, as well as the impact of things that have hit our community, um, George Floyd, the rioting and civil unrest that's happened all across the country, but across the street too. Those things have been weighing heavy. Um, Being a black man in this environment of black men, black people being harmed pretty ruthlessly and publicly brings its own set of challenges. Um, Having a daughter, a black girl, on top of that in this season gives me anxiety for the way I see black women treated. Um, Being married to a woman who is incredibly resilient and has to hold so many different things in her own story and her own being, um, and seeing her kind of blossom and come out of some hard stuff is hard to watch as a spouse, and also very life giving at the same time. And so all of these different things impact home, impact marriage, impact the way I can parent, impact the way I work and the way I can show up. And so, if I be completely honest with you, I'm tired. I'm tired. Just got a lot that I'm carrying, and I'm known to be usually the guy that lights a room up, um, full of joy, full of excitement, full of life, and I feel that being waned on some just from the season of life of just constant and incessant trials. And so, to be honest, I'm tired. Yeah.
Do you ever get tired of telling people that you're tired?
That's good, Raygen. That's a really good question. And then there's complexity with that because you have Benny the human being, whose reputation is being happy. Oftentimes, people can't take my sadness. Like I'm the one they go to when they feel sad. So, uh, so when I say I'm sad, then it's like, whoa, whoa, hold on. So, and then people don't know how to respond to that, and so that's a loaded statement because I know there's other people that kind of show up that way too. And so when they feel what everyone else feels, most people don't know how to handle that. Then there's the level of you're a person in leadership. I'm a person with a leadership position, but I'm also a person that has a leadership role. Just how I show up at work, a lot of people look to me. So when I turn tasks down or I say I can't do it or I'm drawing a line, and people are used to me being a go-to person, um, that that is hard for people to receive. It's hard for them to make adjustments to. Um, it's tough when other folks have other deadlines, and I was a part of that process and making it happen. And now they have to look somewhere else for that. I've taken more PTO and time off over the last year and a half than I ever have in my career, probably combined. And so I've been saying no to a lot more things lately, and it's been really difficult for people to adjust to that. Yeah.
2020 in regards to Act 6?
Yeah. Wow. So with COVID, that was that was a tough season for us to adjust to. First, I'll start with the organization, then I'll move to the programs. But as an organization, we have always existed to be accessible to the community. From the Act 6 standpoint, it was super challenging because our most critical time is the summer training. After we've selected our scholars, that's where they get to bond with their cadre mates. That's when they get to know the greater group of incoming scholars. They get cameos from all the current scholars who are on campus, and they start building those relationship bonds. And they couldn't even meet in person because of COVID. So Miriam and their team, they pivoted, did a whole bunch of virtual stuff, Zoom meetings. They were using, I can't remember, Flipbook or whatever the thing's called, and some other apps, and like trying to keep it interesting and fun. And then, as good as it was, it's unfulfilling. It's unsatisfying. I felt so bad for that first cadre during the pandemic because they did not get the same experience as anybody else. They by far had the worst Act 6 experience because they didn't even get to build those initial bonds. And life goes on. And so by the time they started, some of the schools were allowing people in person, some were not. Some were giving students choice, some weren't. And so, in many regards, some of our kids, some of our students, I'm sorry for saying kids, some of our scholars, families felt offended because it's like, well, now feel like you're putting our child's life in jeopardy because we have a pandemic going on and you're requiring them to be in school in person. But then on the other side of it, our schools are like, if no one shows up in person, we may not exist as a school because if you don't have people living on campus, you don't have people dining, you don't have people getting books, you don't have people, then we can't have people work here to do those things. And if we don't have people to work here to do those things, then we have to start cutting more and more and more stuff. And then people are like, well, if I'm not going to school in person, why do I need to pay the full tuition? Because I'm not getting the full experience. And then our schools are like, well, we're going to give you the same quality, but then the students are like, well, if you're giving us the same quality, then why don't I have the flexibility to be at home? So there's just like, and then these are all legitimate questions and they're all legitimate responses because our students want to have the best experience. Our colleges want to stay solvent. And trying to find that middle ground was messy. It was complicated. And so jobs are on the line, and we already know higher ed's already a fluid space. There's a lot of turnover and transition and things that happen in that nature. And so students who are looking for stability typically can find it in our program. There's a little bit more stability because there's more relationships that are tied into it. And all of that was disrupted because of COVID. So it was a really hard season. And then even the following year, this group still hasn't been able to really meet in person during training. So we're still not out of it. We're still not in the clear yet. So I'm hoping the end is in sight, and that we can redeem some of the experiences for these two groups that have been impacted the most. We also have some of our groups that graduated, and it was just unceremonious because like you work your butt off. You're the first one in your family to go to college, or you're the first one to finish. You're the, you know, maybe you come from a long line of folks. There's a couple of our students, their parents had degrees, maybe even grandparents had degrees, and they're continuing the family legacy. And it was just kind of like, congratulations. No one knew they graduated. May have had a graduation, but you can only allow one person at the ceremony. Like it was just kind of like, man, you bust your butt and then just get robbed at the end. It feels like, so it it, it gets felt on both sides. Coming in and going. It's it was tough, and I really wept for students that were impacted that way. A lot, especially the ones that were breaking cycles in their families, or those trying to carry on a tradition in their family of a legacy of education. So George Floyd, that was a mile from here. Many of our participants at Urban Ventures live south of Lake Street, so it impacted many folks' homes because um, when they're burning stuff down, um, or when they hear about what happened at Cup Foods, like that's where some people get their groceries. You know, the gas station, that's where some of them get their gas. You know, like um, it didn't just hit home. It blew up your yard, your front door. Like it was the biggest disruption I've ever seen in my life. And so, as an organization, um, it wasn't just what happened to George Floyd, that tragedy. It was also, hey, this is a police um, precinct that many people have associated with like antagonizing people of color in the community. Um, not that that is 100% accurate, but there's a lot of truths to it as well. You have a police chief that's from the neighborhood, that's from the community, that's really fighting hard to push for equity and justice on the force and to keep people accountable, but also protect the neighborhoods. And because at the end of the day, something happens, somebody breaking in your house, you're gonna want to call the police. You know what I'm saying? Like, but there's relationships that were um like really, really destroyed with that. I think it was a culminating event for this community. Um, there's another added dynamic to the trials of what happened to George Floyd because this community, historically, once Jewish people left it because black people came into it, was a black neighborhood with strong presence of Native Americans, lower income whites. Um, but this was like a very domestic citizen, American citizen neighborhood, but primarily black. And this community now is predominantly immigrants, particularly our Latinx community, and then our East African population. And so, with the community dynamic shift, there's there was a narrative of tension between the Latinx community and the black community. Um, there was the fallout of trust between the African community and the Latinx community, and then the black community and the African community. And so all of that tension centered around many groups that have been denied a lot of basic human rights and necessities fighting for scraps. And so once once like the civil unrest started happening, um, all of these businesses up and down Lake Street are Latinx owned. You know, you go into one of like Plaza Lake or one of like the flea markets, the indoor markets. There's a Somali one closer to Bloomington, but most of them are like predominantly Hispanic, Latinx immigrants. So when they're going up and down Lake Street destroying businesses, whose businesses were getting destroyed? The Latinx communities, and um, a lot of them were like trying to figure out who's at fault, right? And then people are looking on the news, and you're seeing, fires and all this stuff happening, and then you're associating it with the people that live there. People say, why would people burn down their own things? I don't get why people get so mad they harm their own property. Well, there's like two responses to that. The first one is, don't nobody own nothing over here. So if you don't, so if you want to run with that narrative, why would people ruin their own neighborhood? It tells you who owns it. They don't own nothing. They rent, they borrow. But the reality is also another thing. Maybe just maybe, the destruction was happening from people not from this community. And maybe people were taking an opportunity to destroy something that they never valued to begin with because they don't live here. Here's my anecdote. I'm black. I'm black as hell to people. And when you see me, you know I'm black. You look at my hair, you look at how I dress, you can look at my title and all of that stuff. You forget all of it when you see me. I'm black. I can't avoid it. Black people, black community, there's a space that we cherish. Barbershops, churches, salons, places that take care of our inner health, our inner beauty, our outer beauty. They have a high respect level in our communities. When I was starting to see black barbershops and salons get burnt down, I knew it was not our community destroying our stuff. There's some slang in the hood we used to say, like, you don't crap where you eat, right? So you're not gonna do dirt where you live. So I got a lot of family members that cut hair. Ain't nobody gonna destroy no barber shop. And then I followed that same logic. This neighborhood was a food desert before George Floyd. Where Urban Ventures is at, the nearest grocery store, you have to go a mile and a half west to go to Uptown to Cub, or you got to go a mile and a half, 2 miles east to go to Aldi's, um, Target, or Aldi's. And so it already was a food desert. You you go to one of these mercados, whatever, there's like three different kinds of produce and it's a bunch of canned goods stuff and processed foods. So there's not a lot of healthy options for food over here. So you mean to tell me people that live in this community would destroy their source of food? When I'm driving up and down Lake seeing A's with a circle around it on buildings, and I'm seeing folks in dark clothes and tactical gear, I'm sorry, like power tools. I mean, people taking bolts off the door, throwing stuff in there. And I'm like, man, that looks like people that know what they're doing. I've been a homeowner for going on 3 years. I suck at power tools. Like every time I use something, I use it wrong. And it's funny to me because like most of my neighbors are the same way. They don't even know how to use the power tools they have. Like it's like a whole bunch of malpractice happening with this stuff. And then you see people come in, they got stuff I ain't never even seen before, and they're using it in ways I didn't even imagine. Don't nobody who rents own that many power tools. So people are coming from outside with all of their stuff, trying to blend in with the group and take away all of their supplies. This neighborhood had no grocery, no bank, no pharmacy, no gas station, no police precinct, no post office. You think a community would be that mad where they would destroy their whole like possibility of thriving, and then they would destroy their own businesses? That's the wrong narrative. Most people that live here take pride in what they have, because you know what? Especially with this immigrant population, they risk their lives to come here. They risk their lives so that they can give their families a chance to be successful and go further, to make more money, to to do more for their family and make their family proud. They risk their lives. We're talking about people talking about building walls and sending people back and legislation that's trying to be in place to people risk their lives to be here on Lake Street.
What is becoming of Act 6?
Yeah. I would say it's become a gold medal, but what it needs to be is a training ground. Many people are like, "Oh, I got this Act 6 award. I made it." And the best work is behind them. What we need from this program is I did my best and I bust my butt to get here. And all that showed me is that when I bust my butt, I can accomplish more things. And so my fear is that it will create more entitlement. It would be easy for that to happen. And I've seen it before in the many years I've been a part of this program. It could easily foster more entitlement. But if a person is here for the right reasons, this is an opportunity to develop and be a part of some change that will change you. And I don't think anybody in their natural state right now can be what this community needs in the future. You have to grow, evolve, mature, change yourself in the process. So it's not just, I'm here to change the neighborhood and change my school and change and make it better. Nope, you will be changed by it. And with you being changed by it, you'll be able to know what it needs in its future. And anything other than that looks and feels like colonialism, even from people of color. And so the expectation for what this program can do and be is, first, we got to love this community like the folks already here do. And you have to love this opportunity because only 11% of the people that apply for this get it. So you got to love this opportunity. You got to care about your institution enough to be able to fight through the BS, because you will have BS at your institution, to fight through it for a greater cause because you know that you are gifted with something that nobody else has an opportunity to have. And then once you get through the BS and do all of that and you get your degree, then you got to find out, how do I take this experience that I just had and make whatever my circumstance is better, and make it more impactful, and make it more meaningful, and make it where it benefits not only myself, but it should, but also anyone coming behind me and anyone around me. And you can do it with a camera like Raygen. You can do it with in in an IT room like Edwin. You could do it in a program and do nonprofit work like Sean. You can do it, working your way into the political spectrum and the courts like Brandon. Like you could do it in higher ed like Destin. There's so many folks. You can be in the business world, like Christina. Like there's so many folks that you can like. You don't have to be a protester to make a difference. There's so many different ways you can find your lane and the way that God created you and walk in that and be that. But you got to be changed by your experience. Otherwise, you're going to have an agenda. Brings me back to that thing. I got invited to go to George Floyd's funeral. And then how it was phrased was like Al Sharpton to be there, T.I., like these big figures, Ben Crump, da da da. And I was like, so I'm sad that the man died, and I want to act, but I don't want to be seen. And if my presence is invited to a place to be seen and associated and affiliated, that's not rewarding to me. Um, that feels opportunistic to me, and it feels disingenuous to the man's life and his family. His family should have been able to have their own private, not super public political thing. And maybe they had that. But what I was invited to, I didn't want any parts of it. Not to diss those who did go there, because everyone has different reasons and rationales and perspectives. But in the spirit of lament, that was not going to push me forward to a positive solution that I felt would have been God honoring. And I feel like that would have really been about elevating myself or something else. And that would have just took away the credibility for everything else I've just said. To want to participate in other things like that. And so, ironically, there was a lot of things that I was invited to. Hey, come to this protest. Benny, I need you to help organize this and this. And I was saying, no, 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 no. Like, I have a 6-year-old daughter. I am not standing in front of no highway. And I'm not standing on no bridge. And then folks that I love was on that bridge, almost got ran over. I'm not putting my daughter's life in jeopardy. I have one child. If I had 2 or 3, I still wouldn't do it. But I have one child. And that's not the season of life I'm in where I'm going to put my life in jeopardy for a cause. The cause affects me deeply because I live in an ontological experience. I understand it. I feel it, and I can't escape it. But I also have to use wisdom in the way I deal. And I will never sacrifice my family on the altar of my own calling. And so for me, I had to draw a line. And I was saddened by the events that were happening. Some of the times I'm like, oh, I wish I could be there. Some of the times I'm watching it from a phone, like in disbelief. But then I'm also like, what does me being there at midnight do for me? Nothing. It don't bring the man back to life. It don't bring any of my other friends back to life. I have to, I'm in this place where I'm like, I have to grieve these things. And then I have to be very mindful and intentional about how I'm helping people heal and shape their future. Um, and so lament is very important to do that. So I didn't want to be reactive and responsive and just what's everyone doing, let's do it. Like I had to put more thought into it for myself and my own family. Um, and I really had to think about those things and consider them. I could easily act like a tough guy. Well, stay at home, protect our home. I ain't got no gun. I ain't shot a gun since middle school. My dad's in the National Guard. Go to the range with him. I ain't shot a gun since middle school. You know what I'm saying? I have no right to have a gun right now. Well, I would put my own family in jeopardy. I would not be keeping them safe. So I got to put ego aside and say, you know what? The safest thing we can do to make sure we good is leave. And that sorrow and confusion and frustration I felt, our immigrant families are very, very much in tune with that because they left everything they had to come here, hoping for a better experience. And so I have a lot of empathy, both for folks who share my experience as a domestic black man, but also our immigrant population. And my prayer is that we can move through this season um, in a way where we can really get in a boat with one another, to understand each other's struggles, to appreciate each other's culture, heritage, the wealth that we bring to these communities that make them what they are, and that we can work collaboratively for the betterment of all of our communities and all of our kids. Because I believe we have a unique position in Minnesota where that can happen. And I think George Floyd's life and death gives us the opportunity to do that in a way it's never been done. This thing shocked the whole world, and the whole world is still watching Minneapolis heal. And just imagine if the legacy of healing that they saw united folks of color, united folks from different belief systems and values, different experiences towards something that really develops the people here and the community here. We have an incredible chance to do that. I just leave people with a reminder. What people will remember first is where you were brought from. And for X6 scholars, you need to know what you've been brought from, because when you understand what you've been brought from, you see your current situation and circumstances, and you can be assured that you will get through that too. You come from resilience. It could have been your family who's Karen or Vietnamese, and you took a boat and risked your life to get here, and many people didn't make it. It could have been through slavery. It could have been through uh, hopping a fence to get to another side, which meant you were in another part of land, which meant you had other obstacles, and you're a refugee. It could mean you're undocumented. It could mean you're a DACA recipient. Whatever it is, you've been through some stuff. Maybe this was your land already. Maybe this land was your family's to begin with and it was taken from you, but you're still here. When you know what you've been brought from, you can look at the obstacles ahead of you and you can be assured that you will get through it. You come from resilience. So when our students stub their toe and want to give up, because that's how I look at a lot of things. They're like, oh man, I can't believe the institution did this, or I can't believe George Floyd did it. I'm like, remember that your people came from this. And in the grand scheme of things, are you going to allow something really small to hold you back from a purpose that might have been given to you by God, your creator, whatever you believe in? And you're going to allow that to keep you from where you're supposed to go and what you were called to do? Because if you did, you might have mismanaged your calling. And so, my hope for the scholars is that they understand the importance of their call, that they get comfortable with it regardless of what it looks like. Doesn't mean everyone that comes here needs to be a president. You can be very comfortable if your calling is much different or in society's eyes lower. Be okay with what your call is. Know that you come from resilience. And then don't get distracted by the little things. Because many people start something for what sounds like a purpose and they quit something for what sounds like an excuse. And we let those things like take us out. And then everybody else misses out because you weren't where you're supposed to be. And so my hopes is that as we lament, as we still suffer and still sit in suffering, like I'm telling you I am right now, we still can see a greater hope that we can work through. And it's attached to a promise that you've been through a lot, but I brought you through more, and I'll keep bringing you through.